Here is the final version. The photos were still on her phone when the first bill arrived. That is the part no one thinks about when they book the trip. Not the balance. Not the weeks after. Just the feeling of finally doing something, finally going somewhere, finally having something to show for being young and tired and still trying. The cost of a decision like that doesn't arrive at the airport. It waits. It waits on a kitchen table on a Tuesday morning when the light is nothing like Bodrum and the account says what it says. Maya was 20. Marcus was 22. Together a year and a half, long enough to know each other in the ordinary way, short enough that life still felt mostly ahead of them. She worked the front desk at a dental clinic. He worked warehouse logistics, nights mostly, the kind of job where your body finishes before your mind does. They split the rent on a small apartment. They kept separate accounts. They helped each other when it got close to the edge, which it did, regularly, quietly, without either of them making it into something. They were not reckless. That is important to say. They cooked most nights. They didn't buy things they didn't need. They had savings, not much, a thin cushion that felt more substantial than it was because they had worked hard to build it and didn't want to look at it too closely. But August was almost gone. The summer had passed the way summers pass when you don't go anywhere, in small ordinary increments, weekends at her mother's, the same neighborhood streets, the same apartment with the fan going. She had been watching that feeling arrive for weeks. The feeling of the world existing somewhere else for other people. She said it on a Wednesday night. She said, I need to go somewhere. Not close. Somewhere real. He didn't argue. He had been feeling the same thing and hadn't said so. She said, what about Bodrum? He had never been. She had gone once as a child, barely remembered it, but had carried it anyway, the way you carry places you're too young to understand. Blue water. White stone. The smell of salt before you even see the sea. She had meant to go back her entire adult life and adult life kept not making room. He searched while she talked. Small hotel, old town, terrace with a harbor view, 3 nights. The price was high. It was August. He did the math slowly and did not say the number out loud. He had about 12,000 lira in his account. She had 2,200 in savings. The hotel alone was going to take most of that. Then flights. Then everything else. He had a credit card with a limit he had never touched, kept for emergencies. He said, we could use the card for the hotel and clear it over a couple months. She said, just the hotel. He said, yeah. Just the hotel. They booked it before midnight. There was something electric in it, the particular feeling of a decision made faster than you finished thinking it through, the relief of yes after months of not yet. She fell asleep with her phone on her chest. He lay awake another hour, not worried exactly, but aware. The flight landed mid-morning in Milas. The taxi from the airport cost more than the estimate. Marcus didn't push back on the surcharge because Maya was already looking out the window with her sunglasses on and the coast was appearing through the scrubland and he didn't want the first hour to be about money. The hotel was real in a way the photos hadn't fully prepared them for. Small, whitewashed, a terrace with potted herbs along the railing and the harbor below catching the late morning light. The room smelled like soap and old wood. Maya stood in the middle of it, turned once, and said, I can't believe this is where we are. He put the bags down and said, I know. And he meant it. She posted to her stories before noon. The harbor. The bed. The light through the window. The responses came fast. Finally. You guys look so happy. Fire emojis from people she barely spoke to. She was not performing it. She was genuinely, specifically happy in a way she hadn't been in months, and Marcus could see it, and seeing it made the price of the room feel like a decision he would make again. The first afternoon they walked the old town. Narrow streets, shade, the smell of grilled fish drifting from somewhere. She bought a small ceramic piece, 60 lira, held it up and said, this is so cheap, which is what you say about everything when a trip is still going. He bought water from a cart and didn't check the price. They found a terrace restaurant for dinner, chose it by feel, ate mets and fish and shared a carafe of house wine. The bill was 860 lira. He put it on the card and signed without doing the math in front of her. Saturday they took a dolmus to a bay outside the center. The water was every color blue is supposed to be. They rented sunbeds, 200 lira, and Maya lay on her back with her arm across her eyes and said this was the most relaxed she had felt in a year. He believed her. He was not thinking about anything deliberate. Just the horizon, the heat, the sound of her breathing slowing beside him. Lunch at the beach restaurant was 1100 lira. He looked at the bill for a moment and then paid it because what else do you do at a beach restaurant in August when the afternoon is still going? Saturday night they passed a rooftop bar with music and the terrace lit warm against the dark and they went up without discussing it because the night was asking and they were 20 and 22 and that is what you do. Cocktails were 300 lira each. 2 rounds. A shared plate. The taxi back was 80 lira because Maya's sandals were hurting. She laughed about the sandals. He laughed too. Sunday morning was the boat. Someone at the hotel had mentioned it Friday, a half-day trip, small group, quiet coves. 250 lira each, paid cash at the front desk Saturday evening. On the water Sunday, one of the coves was so still and clear it looked invented. Maya went in first and came up laughing, calling for him, and he jumped without hesitating and the cold hit him like something necessary. They floated together, treading water, her arms around his neck, the boat rocking at a distance. He held her there. Neither of them said anything. Some hours exist completely. That one did. They got back to the hotel mid-afternoon. She napped. He went out to the terrace. He opened the banking app. He sat with the phone for a moment before he looked at anything. The harbor was the same. The herbs in the pots were the same. He looked. The card had 2 days of transactions posting. The dinners, the bar, the boat he had paid cash for but tracked. He added the airport food and the taxis and the beach chairs and the small things Maya had bought that he had covered half of without noting them. He did it twice to make sure the number was right. He put the phone face down on the table. She came out damp-haired from a shower, wrapped in the hotel robe, and said she was thinking somewhere simple tonight. He said, yeah. Simple. She looked at him. He was looking at the harbor. She looked at the phone on the table. She sat down in the other chair and did not ask. They ate doner near the hotel. 120 lira. He paid cash. They walked back slowly and went to bed early and the night was quiet in a way the other nights hadn't been. The flight home was before sunrise. She took one last photo from the window, the harbor catching the first grey light, and posted it with nothing written underneath. He carried both bags to the lobby. The taxi to the airport was silent in a different way than the taxi arriving had been. On the way there she had her face to the window. On the way back they both looked forward and the road was the same road in reverse and everything about that felt accurate. Home was the apartment. The dishes from before the trip still in the drying rack. The mail inside the door. She put her sunglasses on the counter. He set the bags down and they stood in the living room for a moment not saying anything and then she went to make coffee and he sat at the kitchen table with a pen and the back of an envelope and wrote out the full picture. Hotel, 6,600 lira. Flights, just under 4,000 between them. Taxis, airport food, the beach restaurant, the rooftop bar, the boat, the ceramic piece, the things in between. He added it twice. 17,800 lira, approximately. He had left with 12,000 in his account. Maya had put in her 2,200. The card was sitting at just under 8,000 lira. Rent was due in 9 days. His car needed a service he had already delayed twice. Her phone bill was coming. The cushion they had built slowly over the better part of a year was now thin enough to see through, and behind it was the card balance that was going to sit there for months because paying it down would mean living more carefully than they already did, and careful was already what they did. He put the pen down. She came and stood in the doorway with 2 coffees. She looked at the envelope without picking it up. She said, "Okay," and handed him his cup. He said, "Yeah." She sat across from him and they drank the coffee and neither of them said anything for a while, and outside the morning was doing whatever the morning does when it doesn't know you've come back from somewhere. September was fine in the way that means it wasn't. He picked up extra shifts. She did not buy anything that wasn't necessary. They ate at home almost every night. One Friday she mentioned dinner out, the once-a-month thing they looked forward to, and he said they should stay in. She said it was just dinner. He said he knew. She said it felt like punishment. He said it wasn't. She said it felt like it. They ate pasta at the kitchen table and did not talk much, and the food was fine and the night wasn't easy and neither of them was wrong exactly, and that was the hardest part. That was October 2. Not fighting. Just the particular friction of 2 people living more carefully than they want to for longer than they planned, the patience running thinner than the money, the small dailiness of it pressing on the space between them. She looked at the Bodrum photos sometimes. The cove. The harbor at sunrise. The one he had taken of her coming out of the water, laughing, everything right in that moment. She loved those photos and she did not regret the trip in any simple way, because simple regret would not have been honest. The trip had been real. Those days had belonged to them. But she understood something in November that she hadn't understood in August. She understood that the cost of going somewhere doesn't end when you come home. It travels with you. It sits in the careful dinners and the Friday nights you stay in and the slight distance that opens between 2 people when money is pressing on everything and the first thing to go is the ease. The card reached 0 the 2nd week of November. He showed her the screen and she said finally and put her arms around him and he held her, and for a moment the weight of the last few months lifted enough to feel the relief underneath it. But 0 on a card is not the same as back to before. The autumn had cost them something that didn't appear in the balance. Time. Ease. The softness that gets worn down when you are both tired and careful for too long. They got it back. Slowly. That is also true. She still has the photo of the harbor from the last morning. The light just beginning, everything still, the water holding the dark before the day came in. She has not deleted it. She knows what it cost now. Not what they paid for it. What it actually cost. And she knows those are never the same number, and she knew it before, in the way you know things you don't yet believe, and that is the part that follows you longest. Not the debt. Not the months of careful living. The moment on the terrace when you put the phone face down and look at the harbor and the harbor is still beautiful and you are still there and something has already changed and you already know it and you sit with it anyway, because the trip is still going and you are not ready to let it end.